Perfect. Hello. I am so excited to be talking with you today, Trisha. Here we are talking about how to stay on track with weight loss no matter where you're going. Trisha is just an amazing asset. I'm going to hand it over to you so that you can introduce yourself fully and explain who you are and what we're going to chat about.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Trisha Clark. I am the title I've proclaimed is Mealtime Mentor and Kitchen Witch.
Yeah.
And really what that means is I'm all about guiding you in creating routines and processes that feel aligned and feel easy and just feel natural so that we can break down all those barriers that make mealtime feel chaotic and stressful.
Yes.
And yeah, that's because for me, it's all about helping you show up really authentically. And so you can show up differently. And
Hmm.
when we do that, the energy is different. We process things different. We
Yeah.
connect differently with our people so that we can focus on the things that matter. And that's really the gist of my business.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So in my work, I bring together human design, if you're familiar, other practical strategies, intuitive tools, and that can be anything from meal planning to leveling up your cooking skills to how do we create better family dynamics and how do we get rid of some of those friction points that happen around mealtime, right? That keep us from being able to show up as our best selves or follow those weight loss goals because we're trying to please everyone else. And
Mhm.
so, really personalized approaches to help you get out of your own way and create those systems that work for you and not against you.
Yeah, I love chatting with somebody that's also like rah rah systems, but also rah rah energy because I get to be on both sides of that. And I think as a weight loss coach, I really stay inside my systems conversations and how to build habits and how to build routines and things like that. And the asset that I see in you is so much of that energetic, like how people show up energetically. And so I
Mhm.
feel like that to me, there's so much there that I want to like dive into and ask you a billion questions about and things like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
ask away.
yeah,
I mean, I could literally talk about it all day, and there might be moments where you have to shut me up. So,
that's a great problem to have.
yeah.
That's a great problem. Like when you talk about, so I talk a lot about somatic intuition, and that's like
Mhm.
the type of intuition that we're developing with our body so that we understand, like when I say I feel sad, not only can I rationalize and conceptualize that, I can literally somatically feel that and understand
Mhm.
that on such a cellular level. So I genuinely know what's going on. Because when life gets chaotic, we get disconnected sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to pick your brain and hear about like how you help people, help women like discover their intuition, have that intuition conversation, and just
Mhm.
really bring it into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really where it's a lot of conversations about how does it feel in your body, right? How do you feel in your body? I believe that we can use our bodies almost as a pendulum,
Mm-hmm.
right? To understand if a food feels good to you or not. Do you lean in when something is good? Do you lean out when something is bad, right? What does that feel like for you? But
Mm-hmm.
in addition to that, really, that's when we start talking about human design and I'm not a human design expert, like I can teach you the ins and outs of human design, but I use human design as a tool and I do what I call human design mealtime readings. And so we'll look at your authority, your type, your authority, which that is how you make decisions
Mm-hmm.
in your body and not in your mind. And we start really practicing with that. So a quick example is I'm a sacral manifesting generator.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know that my body responds to yes, no, two choices. If you
Mm-hmm.
ask me what's for dinner, I'm not going to have a clue what to say to you,
Yeah.
right? And so it's that kind of and I say intuitive strategies, but there are designs that are driven by the spleen, which is really that whisper of intuition. You've got
Mm-hmm.
that sacral gut feeling in the sacral authority, and then you have your emotional authority, which is how you make decisions. You kind of have to feel through it. So my husband is an emotional authority.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just say like he can't how do I say this? Like he can ask me what do you want for dinner and I can't answer, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've got to have yes or no or do you want Italian or Mexican? I can answer
Right.
that spot on.
Yeah.
For him, I have to prepare him with these are the things that I want to cook this week. These are the things that are important to me or of these things what sounds good to you? And he needs time to
Yeah.
think through that to see like does that feel good to me? Does that sound good to me?
Whoa. Even just hearing that is like life changing because So funny enough, my husband and I, we do Sunday meetings
Mhm.
for the meals for the week because that's the only way that we feel organized. And as you were talking, like I'm a very like I know exactly what I want. I don't have to think about it. I'll tell you right now that I want it or
Mhm.
I don't want it. It's a very clear cut, easy way. Whereas like my husband's like, I don't know if on Wednesday I'm gonna be in the mood for shrimp fried rice or not. And I'm like, just pick it, and like being able to recognize that about ourselves and
Mhm.
then about how it shows up in others allows us to have more effective communication and more effective relationship. But then it allows you, just like you were saying, to show up more authentically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is so beautiful. Like, is that I don't know if you have any maybe like examples with some women that you've worked with and things like that, that like common stressors that maybe come up or things like that in relationship.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a big part of it, I think, is this, it's in our nature to, for a lot of us, right? This is a generalization, but it's in our nature to nurture and to
Mhm.
people please. And when we meal, quote unquote, meal plan, then we're all about like, how do I make sure everyone at my table enjoys what I'm eating? And then we take the focus off of us, right?
Mm,
So there's a part of that. And so I hear a lot about picky eaters. I hear a lot about people pleasing. I hear a lot about just the time that it takes. The stressors is so often the time and the decision fatigue. But when we dig deep and we really break that down, that decision fatigue is either I don't like the word failure. It's either a lack of planning
mhm.
or it's a fear of disappointing someone else,
Yeah.
right? You can call it decision fatigue. I just can't make the decision.
Yeah.
And so in my work, I work really hard to create tools that break down that decision fatigue so we can dig to the next layer, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then talk about, okay, so I'm going to use human design. I keep coming back to it because I just find it so incredibly powerful for not only understanding yourself, but understanding the people in your household and
Mhm.
especially children.
Mhm.
Because if you're telling them this is what they have to eat and their design is telling them that's not good for them, you've got this friction, right?
Yeah.
And so we work through those stressors of you're not ever going to make everyone happy every night. For me, it's really about who needs to be seen and connected with most today, so to speak,
Mhm.
as an example.
Yeah, I
And
love
let's make
that.
sure that they feel seen and heard today, and then Joe feels seen and heard tomorrow.
Mhm.
Everybody still feels seen, heard, and loved and appreciated for their how they operate. But
Yes.
we're not forcing everyone to be perfectly happy
Yeah.
all the time. And
Right.
when we do that, they're fighting you less on the other days because they already feel it.
Yeah. Yes, I love that like collaborative. I think sometimes as women, a lot of the women, specifically the ones that I'm seeing, the ones that I'm working with, they are completely taking over the mealtime. And
Yeah.
therefore, it's going on to the rest of the members of their family to like it, to enjoy it, to praise them for it, to be happy about it, to, specifically, actually, I'm going to bring up one particular client. And she would always say, well, I'm cooking for other people. So it's like, I want to create a meal that's in line with my health goals. But then at the same time, like my husband and my dad still have to really like it. So I'm just like doing the best I can. And I'm always like challenging her to say, oh my gosh, no, there has to be a better way to live
Yes.
like this so that she can get her needs met, her husband can get his needs met, her dad can get his needs met, and everybody's still satisfied. But the onus of responsibility for cooking seems to be on her. So,
Yeah, yeah. So that's another place where we can bring in human design because when you know their unique energetic blueprint,
mhm,
you have insight into ways to involve them in ways that make sense. So I see a lot of women who just say, what do you want to eat this week? What do you want to put on the meal plan? And then they get frustrated if they don't get anything back. Well,
mhm.
one, they may not be asking the question the right way,
Yeah,
right? For how they respond. So we talk about that decision making and are you designed to inform or are you designed to respond? And
yes.
knowing that allows again that communication to be very different. And
Hmm.
so what I love to do is think about, okay, I'm going to use my husband for example.
Hmm.
Here are the two or the options. Like here are the, I don't know, let me make something up here on the fly. Here are 6 recipes that look really good to me this week and they align with my health goals.
Hmm.
Rather than saying, what do you want me to cook this week? I'm
Yeah.
giving him the options. He has input, but he's
Hmm.
not in charge of it. And I am not fully in charge of it.
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah. And so in a moment like that, it almost feels like as I'm going back to my client, her being able to just put that information out there and then not feel responsible for making everybody else happy because she's the one
Hmm.
that's taking the control and taking the accountability when it comes to creating the meals. But she
Yeah.
still is really looking for that validation
Yes.
from
And
you.
so it's funny that you say that because this business, I mean, if I really think about it, was born of so many things in my own journey, but I can very vividly remember wondering why they didn't appreciate my cooking, why they didn't want to talk to me, why I felt like I was just throwing food on the table and rushing through to the next thing.
Mhm.
And the aha moment for me really was I'm putting all the onus on them for how I feel.
Ooh,
Am
yeah.
I appreciated? Am I validated? Am I doing enough? Does it taste good enough? And
Hmm.
it was all putting them on them and then holding them accountable for an ideal they didn't even know they were being held to.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was crazy. It was kind of like this, oh, I mean, I think back to that Taylor Swift song, Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Like that just
That
speaks volumes to where I was. And that reminds me of your client. And you really do have to take a step back and think, I am, mm, I don't want to say obligated to feed these people. I love to say, I want to help you shift from I have to feed these people to I get to feed and connect with these people. And I
hmm
get to do it in a way that feels good to me. But the other thing I'm going to add to that before I go off on another tangent is if she's cooking something that's aligned with her health goals and they don't like it, instead of taking it personally, which I used to do,
hmm
like you couldn't critique my cooking because then it meant I was failing and I don't have time for failure, right? That
hmm
was the mindset I was in.
hmm
And now I treat it as a fact-finding mission. What didn't you like about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Was it the texture? Did I overcook the like was it tough? I mean, I made a pozole the other night and I was so excited and the flavors were amazing. And
hmm
the chicken was tough as hell. And I was like, what happened? Like I cut it
hmm
up, it was cooking, it was steaming, I was braising it, and I think I just got a
hmm
bad piece of chicken.
hmm
But the whole point is I was fact finding on what don't you like about it?
Right.
And there was another dish the other night I made and I thought it was great. It was a creamy chicken gnocchi soup. And my
hmm
husband was like, I didn't like that. And I was like, why? And he
hmm
said, it reminded me, he doesn't really like seafood. He said, it reminded me of the broth when you get mussels. And I don't want to be reminded of seafood when I'm eating like chicken and gnocchi. And I was like,
Okay.
totally get that. And I understand where you're coming from. I understood what he was saying. It
Right.
didn't have anything to do with my cooking. It was literally the recipe. And it just wasn't satisfying for him. But if we're just like, they're never happy and we don't try to find out why in a way that is not why didn't you like it, right? Why don't you like the food I cook? You know, that's where we want to go.
Right.
But really more of a,
Like you're
would
collecting.
you have preferred beef instead of chicken? It could be anything.
Yeah.
And then we know where to switch it up without giving all of our power away.
Yes, I love that. Like as you were talking, I couldn't help but think like you're collecting data.
Yeah.
And really what we're, especially in the work that I do with the women, is like we're trying to not become reactive to the data points that we're trying to collect and internalize them and take them as
Hmm.
a failure of our own and like really break down and allow ourselves to have these conversations. When I think about my clients and what are their barriers to being able to have these conversations in their family, it's that they're becoming emotionally reactive to these conversations. When I say emotionally
Hmm.
reactive, like they're taking it on them. They're saying like, well, if you don't like my cooking, then it's my way or the highway. Or like they're getting mad, they're getting disappointed, they're getting upset. It's tapping into people pleasing. It's triggering, maybe how like they were responsible for their parents' emotions, like all the things.
Oh
Endless.
yeah, the not enoughness, like it's
Yeah.
real, right? And all of a sudden you're not enough again. And I'm like, I was talking to a life coach a few weeks ago, and I have my own struggles with not enoughness in some areas. This just isn't one of them, right? This is my
Yeah.
superpower, but I
Hmm.
have them in other places. And I was talking to her, and she was like, "Let me ask you a question." And I said, "What?" She said, "Who decides what's enough?"
Hmm.
Who's the enough police?
Yeah.
And what is enough?
Right.
Can you define enough for
Hmm.
yourself? And I was like, no, no, I can't.
Yes.
He's like, exactly. And I'm like,
Right, right. I literally think of it. I will use the phrase unshackle yourself from
yeah,
somebody else's belief system and somebody else's rules. Like I grew up with my grandparents and I was raised by them. I can't tell you how many of my grandma's rules that I'm just spitting out left, right, and center before I like hear them back to myself and I'm like, "Oh my God." And it's
yeah,
because it's like that was the normal that she created for us in our home and it was great and it was wonderful, but as an adult woman I have to create my own new normal for my family
mhm.
system and the people that are in my family. Like my husband is not my grandfather. Like very different people, and so just being able to say like this is just a different circumstance, not I'm a failure, not things are going wrong. Like so many of these issues or really feelings of not being worthy enough or not being good enough or being
Mhm.
triggered are a result of belief systems that aren't ours and judgments
Yeah.
that are, I don't like, again, you're right. Who's the nothing police or who's the enough police? Like, I
Yeah.
love that phrasing.
And so I always start with, and I know people, I mean, I know everybody, mindset is such a buzzword in some ways, but it really like I can help you get rid of the decision fatigue. But really, once we do that, it's really digging into those mindset and behavior shifts. And, it's the same thing with weight loss, right? Like, you can't do any of it if your mindset isn't in the right place. And we hang on to so much of that. I had one client who she just bucked cooking. She was like, I've never thought of myself as a good cook. My kids will only eat beige food. And I'm just exhausted by it. And I don't want to do it. And I was like, we dug really deep, and I'm like, why don't you want to do it?
Yeah.
Well, it just kept digging, right? We talked about her human design, and then we started digging in questions. And, like Eddie, I don't really consider myself a coach. I consider myself a mentor. But those questions of digging of, but why? Where did it come from? What
Yeah.
comes up? Like when you're challenged to cook dinner, like what are the feelings that come up? Where are you feeling it in your body? Does that
Hmm.
align with your human design? Like, are we picking up on something? And for her, it was my mom cooked all day, every day, and she was a great cook, and I had a great home life, but I knew I didn't want to be that. And so for her, she was rebelling against something else that she didn't want to be, and it was preventing her from showing up and cooking for her family in
Yes.
a way that she enjoyed. And
Yes.
so we talked through a couple of podcasts. We've had a lot of conversations. And then I didn't talk to her for a few months. And the next thing I know, she has a table at the farmer's market where she's actually feeding other people.
Oh my gosh.
And she's baking homemade bread, and she's talking about how open her kids are being to trying the food and eating new things.
Yes.
And the truth is, the only thing she changed was her mindset.
Yes. In therapy, I like in cognitive behavioral therapy, we would call that cognitive restructuring. What are these beliefs? What are they attached to? And do you want to continue to consent to take claim over them? Because as you're living your everyday and you're living in the patterns that you're living in, you are consenting to these patterns. And like, do you
Mhm.
realize that you're consenting to them? And like, how can we bring them more to your level of awareness? And so that you
Yeah.
can make the changes you want.
And when you're so close to it, you can't see it. And that's where sometimes you need help, like a you or a me, to be able to like reflect back at you, like, and hold that mirror up to say, okay, what's really going on here? Because we can't see it for ourselves.
Right.
We're
Right.
just so close and it's
Yeah.
ingrained so deep.
Yes. I think it would be important that like this wasn't even on my list, but just
Yeah.
like
Sorry.
let's do it. No, 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 like this about what I'm about to enter in. When women first start working with you, and I know you have a collection of services and things
Mhm.
you do, but I think it's important to kind of speak to where some women are at because sometimes they're like, we struggle so silently and so
Mhm.
personally. And so being able to hear from professionals like yourself and myself, like where women are at mentally, emotionally, what they're struggling with when before they start working with us, I think would be really important because so many of them are going to connect with the things we're about to say. So yeah, what
Yeah.
are some of the women like? what sorts of things do they bring up? Like I know we've talked a little bit about it,
Yeah,
but
we talked about the one where it was really, she was raised this way, right? Like, and I didn't want to be that.
yes.
I'll speak for me personally, coming into this as, I consider myself my own client, right? Brought
Mhm.
myself along this journey.
Mhm.
For me, it was, I don't remember family meal times. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't have that connection
Yeah.
in that way. And so when I became a mom, I wanted to create something different that I didn't have growing up. We
Hmm.
all want to do that to some extent, right?
Yeah.
The challenge is I went completely the other direction. And I was like, you will eat this. And I learned how to cook from watching Food Network, and I was working in corporate America. And so I set up for myself this strive for perfection,
Yeah.
right? So I don't have time for failure. That's one of them, right? And if I can't do it perfect, then why do it at all? I'm failing again and I'm doing everything half-assed, right? So,
Mhm.
so many of the women I talk to are just like, I just feel like I am only doing everything halfway. Like I feed them, but we're not really connecting. Or I have another one who, she came to me and as we started talking about like what's really going on here, and she was like, I know that I need to do this, but I just don't know that it's a priority for me right now. And I was like, that's okay. That
Mhm.
in and of itself is awareness that, like, I know I could do better, but let's tackle this problem for now. I'm not ready to dig deep.
Yeah.
But through our conversations, I can tell you she came out of a relationship where, and I think I get the sense it was an abusive relationship,
Hmm.
where the expectation was she have dinner on the table when he got home.
Hmm.
Now she's single, she's a single mom, and I think that that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
So what we found for her is that she has a teenage daughter that likes to cook. So maybe it's not a focus for you. How do we bring her in and you focus on the connection side of it, which you've already got down?
Yeah.
It's not about that you need to be the one cooking or that you need to do this in a certain way, right? So as we think about those deep, the dark, the things that are too personal,
Yeah.
you get to choose in your season of life how you want to tackle it and if you want to.
Yeah. Yes. But like in a very simplistic way, I had a client one time who was like, didn't want to, was afraid of flying. And then ultimately she's like, you know what? I'm never going to fly. That's it. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And I don't have to
Yeah.
like see her every week just to be like, how can we get over your fear of flying? Let's start more exposure therapy. Let's do this. Like, no, you get to choose how deep you want
Yeah.
to go. And it's important too, because when you have somebody talking about the things that are going wrong in their lives, when they verbalize it, it's hard to ignore and it's hard for them to ignore because they've said it. It's right out in front of them.
Hmm.
And so, like, letting them know that they have the power to have a problem and to choose to put it on the back burner, and that is okay. And nobody here is going to get mad at you. Like, not every problem requires your 100% number one top tier attention.
Right. And so I think one of the key things is we talk about the things that they come to you with, like at the crux of all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, at the
Yeah.
crux of it is guilt.
Mm,
Guilt that they're not doing enough or guilt that they're not doing it the right way. And there is no enough and there is no right way.
yes.
And
Yeah.
every season of your life, it's going to change. Like I'm
Mhm.
a recent empty nester. So my mealtime right now, like I don't get people always I kind of get mixed emotions from people when I say I'm loving being an empty nester. I love that my husband and I have more time together. I love that I have more time for my business. I love seeing my children thrive and
Yes.
follow their dreams out in the world. I love all of that.
Mhm.
But it has been an adjustment for how I cook and how I plan.
Mhm.
Every season is different. So the season is different if you have toddlers versus if you're a single mom and you're running a business versus the empty nest. There
Yeah.
is no one size fits all solution.
Mhm.
And I'm tired of everybody acting like there is.
Yeah, yeah, it has to be super individualized. Like
Yeah.
when you and it's funny because I bet that this is what this question's gonna fall under. When you talk about having the children involved in these conversations, I know every kid is different, every age is
Yep.
different, but I guess is there an age that you recommend starting that conversation, or you right out of the gate? Like,
I mean, did I start right out of the gate? No, I did not, because I was perfectionism and I want to clean up the mess, right? I was like, no, 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 you go on, I'll do this. I
right,
wish I had brought them in sooner. I really do. But I know more now, right?
right, yep.
And I know now that kids as young as 3 can be a huge help in the kitchen.
Hmm.
And the thing I want to add about that is it is about helping you and taking some of that ownership off of you.
Yeah.
It's also it's also teaching them important life skills that they're going to need when as they get older. And there might be, we don't know what's going to happen in life, right? There may be a need that they need to feed themselves at a younger age than you would hope. Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest, like things
Mhm.
happen in life all the time. I know it
Sure.
sounds kind of morbid, but preparing them to be able to fend for themselves, cook for themselves.
Hmm.
But there's also the kitchen is the hub of the home. And so the earlier we can invite them in and the more we invite them in to even do the smallest task,
Hmm.
the more welcome and connected they feel, right? It's almost like an invitation into your space,
Yes.
your magic, if you will.
Yes.
And I don't care if that's, I use this example a lot. So if you've listened to me and you're like, oh my God, she said this like 20 times, it's because it's important. But it could be something as simple as getting the products out of the fridge or the pantry and setting them out on the counter while you start something else, while you start the pot of boiling water, right?
Yes.
Age appropriate tasks, obviously.
Hmm.
It could be washing lettuce, it could be stirring something.
Hmm.
It's not about inviting them in and being like, oh my God, they're going to be in here and cook with me the whole time.
Right.
No. No. In fact, I would venture to say that until some kids love it and they're going to want to help, and other kids do not. And that's okay too, right? Have them
Right.
come in for the one task that fits, or if we're talking their human design, like give them a role that makes sense and let
Mhm.
them go if they're not interested. But the one that is, man, embrace it.
Yeah. And like,
And the more they help, the more they will eat all those healthy foods you're struggling with.
yes, because they see it, they understand it, they've normalized
Mhm.
it. It's interesting. There's a
When they
lot.
were part of it, they have ownership.
Yes, yes. So much of our research about children not eating healthy foods is like this phrase that's like, remember to eat your veggies. And then they're like, wait, why wouldn't I have eaten them? And then it
Yeah.
creates like that suspicion. And like when you normalize these things, you're also normalizing their voice in the kitchen, which I think was,
Yes.
we didn't explicitly talk about that, but that's
Mhm.
huge. Like my husband growing up in a family that was very traditional, the men in his family weren't in the kitchen. So even now as an adult, he is like, does my voice even belong here? Like, can I even have a voice? And that adds into our,
Oh, interesting. I
yeah,
love to think about it from that perspective because so often we just put them in this box of they don't want to be,
yeah,
or that expect we assume that
hmm,
they're putting the expectation on us. We make a lot of assumptions
yeah.
and turn that and internalize that into reality, right?
Yes, yeah. And then it dictates our behaviors. And it's like, whoa, that's like your stuff from your childhood. And then it's like affecting me and how I'm functioning in my own kitchen and blah, blah, blah,
Hmm.
even how I look at it. I mean,
Yeah. I
anyone
know
that,
we've kind of gotten really off topic, but I love the conversation of all of this because to me it really
yes,
is, aside from the decision fatigue of what do I cook and what do I eat, this
yeah.
is the biggest piece.
Hmm.
Because once you have this figured out, you can start figuring out the routines that work for you.
Yes, yes. The self work is always where we start.
Hmm.
I know that my ladies that listen to my stuff, they know that I will always talk about your relationship with yourself first and foremost, especially in a weight loss journey. But I love having the conversation about your spouse and your children being involved in the kitchen and how that
Hmm.
changes. Because really, we could talk about as a weight loss coach, I can talk about the behaviors, the routines, the habits, the healthy, blah, blah, blah. But the
Hmm.
reality is if the execution isn't there, then none of that other stuff matters. Like if you don't
Right.
feel happy, healthy, and safe in your own kitchen, your spouse doesn't feel that way, your child doesn't feel that way, then all the other stuff is irrelevant because then you're just doing it on your time and not
Yes.
on the family's time. And when you're making a big change like this, the whole family should be involved. Even if you're eating differently, you're still eating at the same table. And you're
Yes.
still like, do you have it? Like, I don't know if any of your clients have. a spouse eating one way or a child eating one way and a parent eating another way and how they.
Yeah, I really work with them to make that not the case, if at all possible, right? Because I truly believe that even if you're in a world of eating health, I mean, eating healthy gets such a bad rap
Yeah.
because it can be delicious and it can be simple. It doesn't have to be a piece of salmon and three green beans on your plate. Like, let's
Yeah.
break the standard
Mhm.
definition of healthy.
Yes.
Like, let's just throw that out the window.
Hmm.
And there's so many ways to make it delicious, even with dietary restrictions. And so I love to get creative there. And I love to use things like, okay, let's say you can't have dairy, but
Hmm.
I can.
Hmm.
What about a baked potato bar? And you put out all the toppings, and everybody then gets to make their own potato, right? You don't have to have the dairy. He can. Everybody's happy. I think about
Yeah.
your client who's like, they still have to like it. There
Yeah.
are ways to set out a taco bar, a baked potato bar, I have so many ideas where that's concerned. And,
Yes.
and those meals do a couple of things. One, they really add an element of personalization where everybody feels, again, I'm going to say seen, heard, and
Yes.
appreciated
Yes.
because they're not being given this thing. You
Hmm.
have to eat this, right?
Right. Hmm.
It's you make your own.
Yeah.
If your kids are watching and they're watching their bigger sisters and brothers try new flavor and food combinations together, guess what they might want to do? You've cooked one meal. You
Hmm.
might have dirtied a few more dishes by having everything set out, but you're not cooking something different for everyone.
Yes, yes. And you know what's funny? I consider like I love to eat like that because I am
Yeah.
very specific and I like having a lot of control over my plate. And so
Hmm.
like I want that autonomy of like because there's a big decision between or a big difference between yes, I can eat it and yes, do I want to eat it? And so I
Yeah.
don't like that decision being made for me. I like to make the decision of what I'm going to eat, how I'm going to eat it, how much portion I'm going to eat. Like like that to me is so valuable. So a meal like that, I would call that I at home we call it like tapas dinner, where we're like little
Yeah.
of this, little of that,
Yeah.
little of this, and like then the plate gets to look exactly how you want it to look. Like I'm not a one plate, like one thing on one plate type of girl.
Yeah.
I could eat that way, but I prefer, in fact, to have five or six little things and I get a little bit of each.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my, I
Yes.
would love to read your human design. I would so love to read your human design.
Oh my gosh.
And then when we start talking about that, right? Like there are your strongest senses come into play, right? So mine is smell.
Yes.
And I don't remember what my husband's is. And I want to say my son's is taste.
Hmm.
And he's also very like tactile sensitive with food, right? Like certain textures. And I
Hmm.
think that's no, maybe his is touch. And so I have to pay attention to that, right? And I'm like, I don't just naturally put whipped cream on his pumpkin pie because he will gag. He hates it. Like he hates the texture. He hates that texture.
Hmm.
I love it, right? But
Hmm.
knowing that about him, mine is smell. And I can order something at a restaurant and be so excited about it. And if it shows up and it has and I don't mean like a bad smell, but it can have a smell that immediately tells my system, take it home. You can't eat this today.
Yeah.
It's too rich. It's too something. Like I know immediately.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, when people want to, maybe this is, and tell me if this is like good for the end because I had a couple
Yeah.
more things, but
Oh,
like when
sorry. Yeah.
people want to, no, no, I could chat all day. When people want to get their human design, specifically, like where do they start? Like what, I think a lot of women don't even know what human design is.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to myhumandesign.com and pull your own chart. It's free.
Hmm.
And she gives you a great like recap and reading of kind of what all of that means. And you can get a lot of the surface level information, that I'm talking about. Um, and that's a great place to start. And
Yeah.
then I love to, if you work with me, then I do, well, sorry, slow down, Trish. Um, I do a mealtime superpower quiz. And what this is it's really more of a Google form, but I love to call it a quiz because it's going to ask you a bunch of questions that make you think about your mealtime,
Hmm.
what you do, your habits, and it's going to ask you what you want to improve. And it
Hmm.
also asks you what your human design is. And there's a link if you don't know it, but literally is just top level as your type and your authority.
Hmm.
And I take all of that and I leave you a voice note with what your superpower is. And
Hmm.
then one strategy that you can use leaning into your superpower to solve that biggest kitchen challenge, right? So we go back to celebrating what you do well and how do we lean into that and the way that you're designed versus how do I make myself fit this thing that I should be doing?
Yes, yes. I love empowering women through the information about themselves that they don't realize exists. And they can then connect and understand themselves on such a deeper level. Because when we understand ourselves, we can advocate better. We can, really take charge of the things that we need to do. I hear especially in the weight loss sector, I hear every excuse and limitation in the book. And I'm
Hmm.
going to candidly call them excuses because it's just the story that you're telling yourself. It's not real. Like you actually get to push past that. And so I see a lot of, I don't have enough time. I can't do this, my family, blah, blah, blah. Like when we talk about time, do you have any like specific hacks or things that you've talked about or worked with your families in helping them maybe take back some of their time, maybe like offloading it onto the family members, having conversations, like really overcoming this lack of time objection?
Yes, yes. So one of my favorite things is, yes, like if you like to cook or you're just really wanting to cook fresh food, pick a couple of recipes each week that you really want to lean into that you're excited about, right?
Hmm.
And if it means that you also then have some convenience foods on hand, like last night, I didn't have it. I've not been feeling well. And I used a store-bought pesto sauce and a chicken Asiago ravioli from the store. Like it boiled in 4 minutes and I threw some pesto on it. And like that was dinner, right? Like keeping those things around for the nights when you don't have it in you or life just gets lifey, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be fresh from scratch all the time. So
Right.
stock your kitchen with the things that you
Hmm.
know your family loves. And I do this for two reasons. One, to have things I don't have to think about at the end of the
Hmm.
day if I forgot to meal plan or I forgot to thaw the chicken or whatever.
Right.
Or they're also things that I can say, hey, honey, can you put that in the oven or can you start that for me? I'm running late today or I'm just really not feeling good.
Yes.
Right. Again, making it simple. Maybe it's a Stouffer's frozen lasagna is one of my favorite examples because anybody can put that thing in the oven. Right.
Yes. Yes. And not being afraid to have that conversation. Like as we have this conversation, my husband is downstairs making shrimp fried rice, and we planned that on our Sunday meeting because
Hmm.
here I'm having this conversation. We picked a meal that's in his wheelhouse that he knows how to make that I enjoy, but I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about cooking it. And like now tomorrow night, I'll probably take the lead. And it opens up that conversation to say, it's A, not always on you as the woman,
Hmm.
but also B, like how can you make it easy for yourself? Like I tell my clients, how can you make it so easy that you're not going to fail or that it's
Right.
impossible to fail? Because you deserve for things to be easy. Sometimes we feel like we're taking the shortcut when things are easy, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
Take them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what like I feel like I hear that from maybe people who are like 30, 40 plus. Like this is a very adult like thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did this
Yeah.
come from?
Yeah.
Who told us this? Who told us that it's bad to take the shortcut? Was this a school thing? Was this what? Like, no, you deserve to take the
Yeah.
shortcut. In
Yeah.
fact,
So the
yeah, go
a
ahead.
couple of other tips I would add is, in the weight loss world, in the health and wellness world, there's a lot of talk about meal prep.
Yeah.
And I want to remind you that meal prep can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be I'm preparing all my meals and spending hours in the kitchen on the weekend. It
Hmm.
can literally be, I know I'm going to use a lot of onions and carrots this week, so I'm going to chop those up on Sunday when I have an extra 30 minutes, and
Hmm.
that is 5 minutes less work I have to do throughout the week. That is a version of meal prep. Okay.
Yeah.
Another one I want to call out is a couple of things like I love the chopped Caesar salad you buy in the store, the bag kit.
Hmm.
It's easy. I throw it in a bowl and like I don't have to chop everything. It's easy. It's
Yes.
healthy. It's fine.
Yes.
The other one of the other like find those things, those pay attention to your excuses, right? I can't make that stir fry. It has too many ingredients and I would never use all that fresh ginger. Right? That's one of those like I
Hmm.
don't want to buy all those vegetables. I don't want to buy that ginger root. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I buy the pureed tube and I
There you
keep it in the
go.
fridge Okay. Find the things that work for you, but though that one thing alone saves me 5 minutes because fresh ginger root is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
It's you
And
got
you
to
have to have
peel it,
the
you got to grate it. I'm like, who the hell has time for that?
right, you have to have the right tools. You have to know what you're doing, all these things. You're so right. Like, there is no shame in relying on convenient products because what's happening, especially in the weight loss world, is that we're getting exhausted because we're stuck on what I call that dieting pendulum where you're being
Mhm.
restrictive. But when I say
I should do
yes,
this.
yeah, like
Yeah.
this idea of restrictive isn't always just like, no, I can't have it. It's the limitations that we're putting on ourselves in our
Hmm.
own lives as well, because we can't figure out a solution that feels right to us.
Right.
And maybe they can't come up with that solution because of the judgments, because of the fear of relying on the convenience, because of all these things,
Hmm.
not knowing about ourselves, all the stuff. And so when we're stuck in that restrictive place, there's nowhere else to go except, gosh, I really want to break. I just want things to be easy, so let me get fast food. And
Yeah,
then
it's so hard to think creatively in that space because you're just stuck in a loop.
yes, yeah, that's an important mention too, because now you're compromised by your own emotions and your own situation, and you don't even realize that. Now
Yeah.
your judgment, like, not to say your judgment's so compromised you can't do, but like it is blinding your ability to think
Hmm.
effectively and make the judgment calls that you want to be able to make because you're reacting to something else that's going on. You're reacting to, I have to be the wife that does this. Like, I resonate with that loud and clear. I was the housewife that I was so proud. I was so proud to be a wife. And not that I'm not, but I think that my definition of what came with that
Hmm.
ultimately, there was too much. There was too much on my list.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
that's just what it means to be a wife. And then once I unpacked that, it's like, no.
Yeah. I want to remind you that you can make a delicious stir fry with that ginger tube, some sesame oil, a frozen bag of vegetables, and a chicken
hmm
breast. Like,
hmm
you don't need 15 ingredients
hmm
and a fancy recipe.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
and
exactly what's
so,
going on downstairs.
yeah.
Bagged mixed veggies that's frozen. Rice, leftover rice, mind you, from the Chinese food that we got on Sunday because it was too
Hmm.
to cook. So leftover rice, bagged frozen vegetables, shrimp I pulled out of the freezer when I went downstairs to have my lunch, and the ginger. That's
Yep.
it.
That's it. So
Yes.
those are some of my quick hitters on the tips for like how do you get in front of it and then just
hmm
making sure that you are leaning into foods that you love and having them on hand. Again, not the coulds and the shoulds of this is what
Yeah.
health experts say I should eat.
Right.
Because if you don't like it, you're still not getting any joy out of it. And food
Right.
is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to nourish our bodies. It's food and fuel. It's meant to nourish our bodies and our souls. And so is the
Mhm.
breaking of bread together.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, I was speaking to somebody earlier today about this where she was struggling with like, I feel like I can't control myself around certain foods. I hear that a lot. I can't control
Hmm.
myself around dessert. I can't control myself around this. And I think A, it's like the story piece, but also B, it's like, why? What does that mean for you? Is that your only source of release and fun in the food department?
Hmm.
Because if you're not having fun with your food elsewhere, the only place you're going to find it is in fast food, is in dessert, is in these like highly palatable, very sugary foods.
Hmm.
Because you're not have fun and excitement in other areas of your life, in food and in the kitchen.
Yeah. And I find that a lot of women, while they have either taught themselves to cook or maybe have been taught to cook.
hmm
One of the big things that gets missed, in my opinion, is really learning how to taste and evaluate and adjust, right? So that you are enjoying that process. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
not using enough salt, it's going to be bland because salt makes foods taste more of what they are. Salt is important.
hmm
Don't cut out the salt. Like
hmm
again, everything in moderation, right?
Sure.
But like that taste and adjust and really it sounds hard, but it's not. But there's fun to be had in that gathering data, right?
Yeah.
Of do I wish it was a little bit sweeter, or do I wish it was a little more sour, or do I wish it was a little bit more salty? Guess
hmm
what? A recipe is just a guideline. If you want it sweeter, throw in some sweetener or throw in a little bit of sugar if you're making a spaghetti sauce. See if you like it better. If you
Yeah.
don't do it next time.
Right. And we're experimenting with whole foods. When people are talking about the concerns about having sugar, high cholesterol, all these things, like these are problems that happens when we're eating processed food, not when
Hmm.
we're putting salt on our homemade dinner that we created
Right.
at, like that's not where the problems come from.
No, but I can tell you, I watched my grandmother ran a diet center, right? And I watched my mom yo-yo and I watched my grandma yo-yo. And
Mm-hmm.
I watched them do these really restrictive diets. Did they ever tell me I needed to? No.
Mm-hmm.
But what did I learn?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I learned that you have to be super restrictive and you always need to be on a diet
Yeah.
to be healthy,
Oh, couldn't be farther from the truth.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I learned. I didn't learn it because they told me it. I
Yeah.
learned it by watching what they were doing and measuring out everything. And, today it's a grapefruit diet and hard-boiled eggs or whatever the latest,
Yeah.
whatever was.
Mm-hmm.
And it really occurred to me, it was a few years ago, my best friend, got the same best friend since I was 12. And it was a few years ago, we were having a conversation. I think it was girls' night or something. And I don't remember how the subject of diets or something came up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 55, by the way. Let's put
Mm-hmm.
that out there. So we've been friends since we were 12. I'm
Mm-hmm.
55. This is when I'm 52, 53. And she makes an offhand comment that says, yeah, well, Trish has been on a diet ever since I've known her. And I was like,
What?
I have? And she's right, right? Like in her mind, that's how she remembered me growing up. And all my friends were like a size 0 and a size 2. And I was like a good 6, right? Like if I were completely fit, I'm built more like a gymnast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I always thought I was fat. And so and then I'm watching, that's what I was watching. And I was
Mm-hmm.
built like my mom and my grandma. So I must be fat. And
Right.
all my friends are really skinny. So I must be fat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It wasn't until much later in my adult years where I'm like, oh, that's where that came from. But
Yeah.
her saying that was kind of an aha of like, holy shit. You're
Yes.
absolutely right. I have been. And
Mm-hmm.
while I know how to eat healthy and I've learned all the rules but I've been through a gazillion diets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that moment that I realized, wow, that's not the plan for me.
Yes. Yes. I love that because I love that conversation and I appreciate you sharing that because so many people can watch what we're doing and think like, wow, that's so much work. There's so much going into it. There's so much blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I'm actually doing this because it feels right. It's how I operate. I
Hmm.
know that from a fact. Like my decision making isn't happening up here. My judgment calls are, but my
Yeah.
decision making, like that has happened at my meeting. Like this is based on a foundation of how I feel, what I trust in, how I know years of eating and
Hmm.
data and collection and everything. And so it's about like being guided by our intuition and what feels good and what tastes good versus
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to do this or like, oh, I got to do that. Or my favorite phrase is like, I'm eating this because it's healthy. And then I always say, healthy for what? What's your goal? Like,
Yeah.
like if you have to, if you're a diabetic, yeah, okay, this meal might be healthy for you, but if I'm a runner and I'm eating a whole bowl of pasta, that meal is healthy for me and not the diabetic. And
Yeah.
it's about using what feels good and like being able to develop that intuition and being able to have these conversations so that we can get our needs met. That's truly what's
Yes.
we want to get our
Yeah. And
needs
if I lost all the weight I ever wanted to lose, no. Am I ever going to be a size 2? No, I was never going to be a size 2 then. Like my
met.
goals were so unrealistic. And so for me, my goal the last 2 to 3 years has simply been, and I think this is important to note too, my goal has simply been to learn what my body needs,
Hmm.
learn how to pay attention,
Hmm.
and I know that no matter how much dieting I
Hmm.
do, if I don't handle the stress that's going on in my life, I'm never going to shake any of it. And so I personally had to let go of the weight loss goal.
Sure.
And my goal was just to really get in tune, handle the stress, and just learn how to do everything in moderation. And I feel so much better. And the upside of that is I'm not gaining weight. I'm not losing it either. That will be the next path when it's the right season for me and I'm ready to do it. And
Yes,
I'm not right now. Like
right.
I haven't done all the work I need to do to make that
Mhm.
decision and like not make the excuses.
Right, right. You get to consent where your weight loss journey is, like my or your health journey. Like
Yeah.
it is really a healing journey when you like kind of look at it. Like, yes,
Hmm.
health is improving and usually weight is coming down, but like it's interesting in my personal journey, I lost like 10 pounds and then I kind of stayed at the same weight for a very long time. And it wasn't until about a year or two ago where I then was in the season of like, I can dial this in. And you know what? I want to dial this in. I have
Hmm.
active goals that I'm interested in, and I'm in the season of life to dedicate it. I always wanted abs. That's just something I always wanted. And I
Yeah.
had the time and energy in my life to dial it in and to put that. And it didn't feel restrictive because
Yeah.
I consented to it. But I think a lot of times, sometimes we put this weight loss idea like, I got to lose 30 pounds. And they're so attached to the 30 and they're not attached to the body that's trying to
Hmm.
lose the 30 pounds.
Right.
Not truly
It's what they got to
consenting.
be connected.
Yeah.
And I mention all that because I think a lot of times, and I find myself still falling into this, is, I get DMs from different health coaches like, how are you doing on your fitness journey? And I'm like, one, I've never had a conversation with you. Like, why is that your first question out of the gate? Like, what did my profile tell you
Right.
that prompted you to like get in touch with me, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
maybe you could start with what are your health goals? That might be different.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that there's a lot of merit in working with someone like you to even if like weight loss might be with the goal in your head,
Hmm.
that's not necessarily where we always need to start. And
Hmm.
so we can make the decision to work with you, even if 30 pounds isn't the goal, right? Maybe it's the what's getting in my way and what are the stories that I'm telling myself and how does that show up in mealtime,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. And then maybe we get to a point where like, okay, you know what? I'm okay with me and I don't need to lose weight, but I really want to feel good and be healthy.
Hmm.
Or, okay, now I'm ready to shave off that 30 pounds. And
Yeah.
then you might even get halfway through that and be like, you know what? I lost 15 and I'm good.
Yeah, you might feel great. You might be happy. You might be like, you know what? I've been at this 15-pound loss for maybe 2 weeks. If I want to dial it in and lose that next 15 pounds, I'm going to have to naturally make changes. And
Hmm.
genuinely, when you come with making changes, you are giving some things up. That just comes with
Yeah.
the territory of it. And you get to choose that you don't want to give things up. Like you totally get to make that choice every single
Yeah.
day.
You get to choose what it is that you give up. And it may be a longer road or a shorter road, depending on those decisions. Again,
Yes.
up to you, right?
Right.
And then there's so many of us that are, some are built for structure,
Hmm.
right? Some are built for flexibility.
Mm. Yes, yes. I think I need to figure out where I fall in that because I like both of those things. And so
I like guardrails, like I like a framework.
yes.
But as soon as you put it into some, more concrete than that, now you're telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And I
Same.
I
Yeah,
back
I'm
up.
the same way.
Huh?
Like for sure. Like because I too I react when somebody when it feels like somebody else has too much control in my life. I'm a controlling person. I got it covered. Don't worry about it. Like so yeah, like being able to know that about me allows me to navigate my meals in a way that truly does give me joy.
Yeah.
And it allows me to have connections with people. And that truly gives me joy through the food. And everything that I think the big thing that really turned me on to your work and everything that you do is the focus on connection. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm a weight loss coach. I talk about weight loss, I talk about all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about being happy, connecting to other humans, and like living our best life. And you
Yeah.
teach people how to connect.
Yeah. And I think it's so much about being present. And I know we hear that a lot, but if you're so focused on how you want to look in the future, you're really missing out on the blessings that are in front of you today, regardless of your size.
Yes.
Regardless of your size, your kids aren't going to love you any different if you weigh 30 pounds less.
Yes.
And I'm
Right.
here to tell you that if your focus is solely on losing weight, you got to
Hmm.
be careful about what you're teaching them because I'm going to go back to my story, right?
Yeah.
So before we close up, and I know we've probably gone over, but one of the things you asked me about was how to easily and effectively plan for the meals that you want to eat, right?
Yeah.
And I want to touch on that rigid versus that flexible,
Yes.
because I think when we hear the words meal plan, we automatically think like, you're going to give me this meal plan and I'm not going to like half of what's on it. And I think you and I even talked about this in our chat. And I want to tell you that that's not what meal planning, it can be that if that's what works for you, if you're meant for rigid structure and you just need somebody to tell you what to do and you love to follow that. If you're a
Yeah.
generator, that's probably going to work really well for you. And then just leave a little bit of room for flexibility, right?
Hmm.
For spontaneity to come up. But a meal plan could literally be, I'm going to cook these three things this week. We have a fend for yourself night, and one night a week we eat out.
Hmm.
Planning to eat out is part of a meal plan.
Hmm. Hmm. That's so valid. I don't think most people think about it that way.
No, because we hear meal plan and we're like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
no, it is literally just a
Hmm.
plan for how you're going to eat. And so again, you get to decide what that looks like.
Yeah.
So in my house, you talked about your husband saying, oh, I don't know if I'm going to want that on Wednesday. I make a list of 3 recipes that I want to cook. I buy all those groceries. I have them on hand. I have my
Mhm.
convenience foods. I get to go into my list on Monday and look at it and say, I go through the list and I ask my sacral what sounds good to me today. And I
Mhm.
get to pick, right? Maybe it's in the morning because I have to thaw something, but I
Sure.
get to pick in that moment. It's not that I'm locked into, I have to have this on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That is
Hmm.
still planning. It's still a meal plan.
Yes. Yes. It's almost like you have to have like a lot of people aren't having these conversations, even the conversations in your head that you're like that you were just saying, like, what am I in the mood for? What do I want? Like genuinely being interested in what your body and what your mind have to say and contribute to the environmental situation of what's going on. Like
Yeah,
there,
and some days you might be having a really shitty day and it wants chicken and dumplings and a big fat chocolate cake for dessert. Like, if that's your one day and you acknowledge that, then so be it.
yeah,
And then have your Caesar salad with your chicken on top tomorrow. Like,
yeah,
that's okay.
right, right.
The other thing is we talk a lot about themed meals, and everybody's like, yeah, meatless Monday, Taco Tuesday, yada, yada, yada. I don't
Hmm.
want tacos every Tuesday. You don't, again, nobody says you have to because you set a themed plan. Okay.
Right.
You get to choose.
Hmm.
But that could literally mean a different kind of taco each week. It could be shrimp tacos this week because you're feeling the need for seafood, but you
Hmm.
still have a theme, so to speak.
Yes.
And what that does is it informs everyone in your household of what to expect.
Hmm.
And if they know what to expect, guess what question you're not going to hear as often?
What are we having for dinner tonight?
Right. And then hearing, I don't want that. They already know.
Yeah.
Plaster it somewhere. I have mine on the front of the fridge.
Hmm.
Everybody gets to see it. They know what's happening.
Right. Right. They get to
And
also
that
be part of,
again caters to all those different unique energy blueprints, right? Some need to be
yes.
notified. It gives them something to respond to. Some need to be informed. Some need that structure of knowing what's coming.
Yes. Yes. So much of like we talked about decision fatigue and really that like I feel it as paralysis. Um
Yes,
like literally feel
it
it
is.
paralysis of like what do I eat? I'm not sure. And like when we get confused, we're stuck. And like so much of that confusion can really be broken down and dissipated by having conversations with your family, having conversations with yourself, your body, understanding yourself, building a relationship with yourself. Like, screw the rules, screw the discipline,
Yeah.
screw the all that other stuff. Like, even though I talk about how to achieve these things, you got to be in a good place with you before we start. Like, I mean, consistency and discipline are like more granular
Hmm.
like things that we're talking about. These are the people who are like, this is my last 10 pounds and I've always wanted abs versus like, I've been chronically overweight my whole life and I struggle with fast food and emotional eating. Very different people
Very different
with
things.
very different goals.
Very different things. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I had a thought and then I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me in a second. What I was going to say is, and so when we focus on those things, you develop that relationship with yourself, right? We've talked a lot about mindset. We've talked a lot about
Mhm.
meal planning. And the reason is we've talked about mindset. We've eliminated the decision fatigue because now you have a plan.
Mhm.
And now you get to show up differently. And guess what happens when you show up differently, even outside of the connection? That's when your brain is unlocked for creativity. You're in that creative space. And now cooking and connecting can be fun because
Mhm.
you're not thinking about the 10 other things that need to be done. You've got your routine or process, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And then you get to play and experiment and you get to show up at the table ready to just have a conversation.
Hmm.
That's where the fun and the magic happens. And that's really, I talk about food and meal planning and all of that, but the end goal is to get there. But we gotta get all this other shit out of the way to get there.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. I have like thoroughly enjoyed because I feel like we covered so much. Like
We did. And I'm not sure it was exactly what we had planned, but
it's
we hit on a lot of it.
yeah. And it's great because I think like in my world and the people that listen to me, they're so used to me hearing like talking about these things, but in my words and in my
Yeah.
way and in my framework and being able to hear like your words and your framework and everything like that has been so valuable because it's really, we're both affirming so many of the things we're saying
Mhm.
to each other in our own ways and how it
Yeah.
plays out in our lives. Like, I think of health as levels. And when I meet somebody else that's on a similar health level that understands, like, and I'm not saying levels and like, we're better than you, we're higher than you. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that I'm like being able to be further along in your health journey because you have had these conversations with yourself, because you have such comfort and structure and stability in what works for you and what doesn't
Mhm.
work for you. Like, these are the foundations that we can build any goal, any plan on. You know, like, yes, weight loss is a a goal for a lot of people,
Mhm.
but it's truly a healing journey. And then like
Yes.
the health and the weight loss and the everything else just comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that we've like you talked a little bit about your quiz. Like I just want to kind of close off with having you be able to talk a little bit more about like your offers and what you do so that they can
Yeah.
keep people to all your
Sure.
good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I would love to, I'm going to drop the link, I mean, in for the quiz. I would love for you to take it. Like I
Hmm.
said, you're not going to get an immediate feedback. What happens is you submit it and within 24 hours, I leave you a personal voice note. And
Hmm.
then I'm going to invite you to get on a call with me where we can dive a little bit deeper, still free.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm hoping that that gives you a taste of what we can uncover, right? And then in my programs, I have like a mini month taster, is what I'm calling it. Right now, it's focused on the holidays and helping you
Hmm.
have the best holiday ever. And we really start with what matters most. What do you want to feel on Christmas? How do we make that happen from the food to the activities to the decor to the like assigning those roles, right?
Hmm.
How can we help you take it all off of yourself? And so that's my Marion Bright offer right now.
Yeah.
It's 30 days. And while it is focused on the holidays, whether you sign up today and there's only 2 weeks till Christmas and you're like, Trish, like, I don't need help with the holidays, the framework works no matter what 30 days, like no matter what the theme is that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that is my current offer. It's $555, which it's normally like 1,200. And so it's kind of my holiday offer because I know that things have been weird lately and everybody needs a little bit of a break. And
Yeah.
I'm just really, really I'm having a ton of fun with it with the clients that I'm working with from
Mhm.
really, you get a human design reading for you and up to 3 people in your family. And then we talk about, you get a report that says, okay, now that we've put all this together,
Mhm.
here's your superpowers, and here's where the friction points can come up.
Mhm.
And here are some strategies to really tackle those. And leading up to the holidays or New Year's, or maybe it's nourish your body and your soul as we go into January. It is how can we empower them to help us on that journey
Mhm.
and everybody be aligned. So that's the offer I'm really focused on right now. It also comes with one of my favorite tools, and then I'll shut up, which is the AI. It's a customized AI. I call her the AI Kitchen Witch. And
Mhm.
she is a custom GPT that I load with all of your human design information and your families.
Mhm.
And she's trained to be a meal planner, a recipe generator. And so when you talk about decision fatigue, you can literally say, make my meal plan and my grocery list sorted by aisle, and she'll do it for you in seconds.
Oh my gosh.
We just train her. We meet to train her on your dietary restrictions. What are your health goals?
Yeah.
Um, Are there any health issues that we need to worry about? Now, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a health coach. I load all of that so that it can do its best to give you
Hmm.
recipes and things that align, whatever that looks like for you. And then we play, I say we play with it, we experiment, we test it, and we make sure that she's giving you exactly what you need.
Yeah.
But that comes with that plan, and she's normally $297, but she is literal magic for
Yeah.
decision fatigue.
Yeah, that is so valuable. It's funny, like I think everybody's so used to hearing about AI recently and to
Hmm.
hear about AI where it's like, oh, actually I'm interested in that as opposed to me like swimming away AI notifications all day long and being like,
Right, right. Because this isn't about creating your social content or building your business. This is truly an opportunity for you to use it to make your life easier
mm-hmm,
and take care of those things that you hate to do. Because I love to tell her to give me a meal plan and the recipes, detailed recipes. And I'm
mm-hmm.
like, okay, that looks great. Or I can be like, no, I don't like that one. What's a good
Yeah.
substitute for X, Y, and Z? Okay, great. Here's the meal plan. Now give me the grocery list sorted by aisle. And then all I have to do is print that out and like
My husband
I
needs
could figure out how to push it over to Instacart. I haven't gotten there yet, but that's the next step. So,
Yeah, like
yeah.
you're hacking your own time. And I love that. And
Yes.
you wouldn't have even gotten to that place. This is me saying as a reach. But like
Mhm.
had you not had this like conversation and place where you're coming from and acting energetically in alignment with everything. Like that was literally the foundation for all of this creation and then you going out and reaching and helping other families and women. Like that's huge and I love that. I
I
think so
love
many women here are gonna benefit from that. I know a couple women that need that. I'm not gonna call any
it.
names, but yes, like I'm so excited. I'm going to post that live, or I'm going to post that information, the quiz and everything like that on
Okay.
in the guide section underneath where this is. If you have any issues, you guys just message me, just message Taryn. You'll find it, but I'll put it up as soon as we're done chat.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about the program I mentioned, like on that call that free call that we talked about, I'm happy to give you the details if you want them. But
Mhm.
please take the quiz, get the call, like get the insights that you can use to move forward now, whether you decide to work with me or not.
Yeah, 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 I love that. I'm so excited. I can't wait to like tell you my human design and send
I
it.
know. I'm all excited. Nerd out. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you so much for having me today. This has been so much fun, and I love deep conversations and to find people that are willing to talk about this stuff.
Mhm.
I could literally sit here and have a conversation all day.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your night.